It was a normal Saturday afternoon. Alex wasn't planning to buy anything. He just walked into a mall to pass some time. But somehow, he walked out with a brand new phone, $1,000, paid in installments. Now here's the interesting part. His old phone worked perfectly. No cracks, no lag, battery lasted the whole day. Nothing was broken, nothing was missing. But the moment he held the new one in his hand, everything about the old phone started to feel outdated, slower, less exciting, almost wrong. Even though 24 hours earlier, he had zero complaints. That shift didn't come from the phone. It came from perception. And that's where the upgrade illusion begins. Most upgrades don't solve problems. They create new standards. And once that standard changes, what you already own starts feeling like it's not enough. Hi, I'm Rishi, and this is something I started noticing everywhere, not just with phones, but with almost everything. Cars, clothes, laptops, even homes. People aren't upgrading because they need to. They're upgrading because something new exists. And once that happens, what they already have feels like it lost value, even when it didn't. So in this video, let's break down how this upgrade illusion works, why it keeps you spending without realizing, and how to escape it without feeling like you're missing out. Let's get into it. Let's go back to Alex for a second. After buying the phone, the first few days felt amazing. Faster face unlock, smoother animations, a slightly better camera. It felt like progress, but by the end of the week, that feeling faded. Everything felt normal again, just like before. Same apps, same usage, same routine. And the difference? Barely noticeable. Now here's where it gets measurable. According to data from consumer intelligence partners, the average iPhone user upgrades roughly every 3 years, not because the phone stops working, but because something newer shows up. At the same time, reports from Counterpoint Research show that modern smartphones are designed to last 5 to 7 years with normal use, so there's a gap. People are replacing devices almost twice as fast as necessary. Now put numbers on that. Let's say the average upgrade costs $1,000 every 3 years. Over 30 years, that's 10 upgrades, $100,000 on just phones. And that's a conservative estimate because it doesn't include accessories, insurance plans, repair avoidance upgrades. Now here's the real question. What if that same $1,000 was invested instead? At an average 8% return, that turns into over $100,000 across that same period. Same money, different direction, completely different outcome, but the payment still there for the next 24 months.
This is the cycle most people don't realize they're in. Short-term excitement, long-term commitment. And the gap between those two is where money quietly disappears. Here's the truth. Most modern products are already good enough. Your phone already does what you need. Your laptop already handles your work. Your car already gets you from point A to B. But the market doesn't benefit from good enough. It benefits from what's next. There's something subtle happening every time a new product launches. It doesn't just show you something new. It makes your current version feel old. That's the real strategy. Because if you stayed satisfied, you wouldn't upgrade. There's actually a pattern you start noticing. People don't upgrade when things break. They upgrade when something newer shows up. That's a completely different trigger. One is based on need. The other is based on comparison. And comparison is expensive. There's actually a psychological reason behind this. It's called hedonic adaptation, a concept widely studied in behavioral economics. Researchers have found that people quickly return to a baseline level of satisfaction no matter what they buy, which means that excitement you feel after upgrading is temporary. A study from Harvard University showed that material purchases create short-term happiness spikes, but those effects fade quickly as people adapt. That's why the new phone feels amazing for a few days, then normal, then eventually replaceable. So the system keeps working because your brain resets faster than your payment cycle. Think about this. A phone from 3 years ago can still handle almost everything: calls, messages, social media, photos, videos, apps. For most people, there's no real limitation. But when a new version comes out, suddenly the same phone feels slow, outdated, behind. Not because it changed, but because your reference point changed. And this doesn't stop with phones. It shows up everywhere. Someone buys a car and is perfectly happy with it until their friend upgrades. Now, suddenly, their car feels smaller, less impressive, even though nothing actually changed. This is the illusion. You're not upgrading your life, you're upgrading your comparison. Let's talk about the money side of this, because this is where it gets real. Let's say you upgrade your phone every 2 to 3 years, around $800 to $1,000 each time. Over 10 years, that's easily $4,000 to $5,000. Now add laptops, watches, headphones, random gadgets. That number grows fast. In fact, according to the Consumer Technology Association, the average American household spends around $1,500 to $1,800 per year on consumer electronics. That includes phones, laptops, TVs, accessories, smart devices. Now, stretch that over 25 to 30 years. You're looking at $40,000 to $50,000, spent mostly on upgrades, not first-time purchases. Upgrades. And if that money was invested instead at historical returns similar to the S&P 500, that could easily grow into $150,000 to $250,000. That's not a small difference. That's a life-changing gap, all from decisions that felt small at the time. And most of it comes from upgrades that weren't necessary.
Now imagine something different. Instead of upgrading every time something new comes out, you wait. You use things fully. You replace only when needed. That gap in spending becomes savings, becomes investments, becomes growth. If you're still watching, you're probably starting to see how small decisions turn into big financial patterns. And if this kind of thinking helps you, you can subscribe. No pressure, just more clarity like this. Let's go deeper, because this isn't just about money. It's about psychology. Why do upgrades feel so good? Because they give you a sense of progress. Even when nothing meaningful changes, it feels like you're improving your life, moving forward, leveling up. But most of the time, you're just resetting your baseline. Here's what happens. You buy something new, it feels exciting for a few days, maybe a few weeks, then it becomes normal and your expectations adjust. So when the next version comes out, you repeat the cycle. This is why upgrades never feel enough, because the satisfaction doesn't last. There's also something called the Diderot effect, a concept where one new purchase triggers a chain of additional spending. You buy a new phone, now you need a new case, new charger, wireless earbuds, maybe even a watch to match the ecosystem. One upgrade rarely stays one. It expands, and companies design it that way. Ecosystems aren't just about convenience. They're about increasing your total spending without you noticing it all at once. Another thing most people don't realize, upgrading too often keeps you financially stuck because you're constantly spending on things that don't create long-term value. They don't generate income. They don't grow. They don't compound. They just replace something you already had. And over time, that pattern adds up, not in one big moment, but in small, repeated decisions, year after year. Now, this doesn't mean you should never upgrade. That's not realistic or necessary. The goal isn't to avoid upgrades. It's to upgrade with intention. Ask simple questions. Is my current device actually limiting me? Or am I just reacting to something new? Will this change how I use it daily, or just how I feel about it temporarily? That pause alone eliminates most unnecessary upgrades. There's also a smarter way to upgrade. Instead of chasing the latest version, you can step back 1 or 2 generations. Same core experience, much lower price, much better value. Because once the hype fades, products become cheaper, but still just as useful. Here's the bigger shift. Start measuring value by usage, not by newness. A device you use daily for years is more valuable than something new you replace quickly. And once you start thinking like that, your decisions change naturally. You stop chasing releases, stop reacting to launches, stop feeling behind. Because you realize something simple. You were never behind, you were just being shown a new standard every few months. And if you don't question it, you keep spending to keep up, without even realizing it. At the end of the day, the upgrade illusion isn't about products. It's about perception, making you feel like what you have is no longer enough, so you keep replacing instead of fully using. And the people who break out of this pattern, they don't avoid technology. They just stop letting it control their decisions. So next time you feel the urge to upgrade, pause for a second. Not to say no, but to understand why. Because that one moment of awareness can save you thousands over time. And more importantly, it gives you control over your money, over your decisions, over your direction. Because real progress doesn't come from upgrading everything around you. It comes from upgrading how you think.